So good evening, friends. Meeting after gap of 2 days, and we have to start with new aphorism. We have given ample time to learn the fifth aphorism. In the fifth aphorism, there are many points which we have discussed. The first important thing which we have discussed is the diseases, acute diseases, and causes of acute diseases. Acute diseases are caused generally because of the exciting cause, especially when it is of individual variety or it is of a indisposition. And there are physical causes as well as psychological causes, chemical causes, biological causes. All those are responsible to produce acute exacerbation. And that's what we have discussed. Thereafter, we have started how to investigate a fundamental cause, the cause behind chronic miasm, specifically related with the SORA. And Hahnemann explains over there are many points through which you can understand and investigate the fundamental cause. The first important point is ascertainable physical constitution of the person, which is very essential to understand. Then his moral and intellectual character, that is the second point which we have discussed in length. Third one was his occupation. The fourth one was his social and domestic relations. The fifth one, the mode of living and habits. The sixth one is the age. And last point, which should be asked at the last, but not the least, in the whole history of the human being, is related with the sexual function of the patient. And that denotes your idea regarding and understanding regarding that human being. So this is what we have discussed in length in last lecture, and thereafter we have to start with the one more big aphorism, which has a lot of meaning and which has a lot of understanding. The aphorism number 6. Generally, what happens, we used to prepare from exam point of view, and we used to look towards it only from the exam point of view, that unprejudiced observation is given in this aphorism, and we mug it up and write it down. But today we have to understand what is exactly the unprejudiced observation and why it is so important to become an unprejudiced. So let us start with the sixth aphorism, what Hahnemann says over there. So Hahnemann starts in the sixth aphorism: the unprejudiced observer, well aware of the futility of transcendental speculations. Futility. What is futility? Futility means nirarthak kruti, which doesn't have meaning. Futility means the thing which doesn't have meaning. Transcendental speculation. Transcendental meaning in Marathi, it is sandigdha, which doesn't have a specific meaning which can be accepted or known to the common man. सामान्य माणसाला जे लवकर समजणार नाही, that is what is called as a transcendental. Speculation is conjecture, tarka, thought. So well aware of the futility of transcendental speculations which can receive no confirmation from experience. What he says, which can receive no confirmation from experience, be his power of penetration ever so great, takes note of nothing in every individual disease, except the changes in the health of the body and mind, morbid phenomena, accidents, symptoms, which can be perceived externally by means of senses. Now he starts how to look toward the patient, what to understand, and how to understand. Basically, first word which he has utilized over there, the unprejudiced observer. Unprejudiced has a big meaning. Prejudiced means biased. If you consider it in Marathi, the word is rather difficult to understand. It is called as Purvagraha Dushit. But if we understand it in English, it is quite simple. It is a biased mind. And biased, every human being is biased because we are gifted with certain things. We are gifted with the mind. There is a will, there are emotions, there is intellect, there is an understanding, there is a memory, And along with that, one more gift is given to the human being is the logic, the process of reasoning. And because of which every human being, whatever he learns, is automatically enters inside his brain in the form of some memory. And those memories always comes in front of mind whenever you look toward the similar thing. This is the analytical mind. And analytical mind happens to be there because you have a logical mind. Logic is gifted. Logic always used to do analysis. Logic always used to do a comparison. Logic always used to do a thinking process with which he compares one thing with another thing. And that's why whenever you look towards any new thing, your mind starts comparing it with the previous thing. And that's why this is a big entity which Hahnemann is telling that you become unprejudiced. How can it be possible? It is very difficult task. When you learn, when you enter into the first year or second year of your VIHMS, you start learning materia medica and you start learning one by one remedy. What happens when you start learning the pulsatilla? You learn materia medica of the pulsatilla, it remains that pulsatilla is VP personality. She is very emotional, she is very sensitive, she is the doctrine of signature. All those things remains in your mind. Next day you learn the natrum muraticum. Again a weeping personality, but there are little bit differences. Third day you learn the Ignatia. Again a weeping remedy. And then fourth day you learn the sepia. And there is only one thing which happens in your mind. Then what happens? Then there is a confusion. That confusion is very nicely elaborated in one song. कभी तू पल्स लगती है, कभी तू नेट्रम लगती है, तो कभी तू इग्नेशिया लगती है, तो कभी तू सेपिया लगती है. This is what the thing which happens. Because of prejudiced mind, because you are prejudiced with the pictures of sepia, the pictures of natrum, your pictures of ignatia. And what happens when it has been saturated over there, immediately you start thinking whether next person is sepia, whether next person is ignatia, whether next person is natrum muraticum. Your mind immediately starts comparing. The prejudiced nature is the biased nature which develops automatically because you have learned from that way. And if you want to develop unprejudiced mind, then you have to follow certain things. Then you don't have to think anything. Then you don't have to learn anything. What happens whenever the patient is sitting in front of you? He says one thing, that whoever a patient is there, don't give name to the disease. Don't understand what the disease from which the person is suffering from. But do only one thing. Just go on finding it out what is altered in character, which was not there earlier. Just find it out how he was in the state of health and now how he is in the state of disease. What is the alteration that he wants to notice? And this is what he explains over there, that he, be his powers of penetration ever so great, takes note of nothing in every individual disease. So don't go find it out what is the diagnosis, what is the name, nothing. What he used to do, accept the changes in the health of the body and mind. Only things, just find it out, what are the changes which are happened. Tell us what he has given the name. He has given the name morbid phenomena. So morbid phenomena is nothing but the expression of the disease. Morbid phenomena is an expression. Another word which he explains, the accidents. Why he has called it an accident? Because he was normal earlier, after some disorder. So after some accident, this has been expressed in the form of some signs and symptoms. So morbid phenomena, accidents, symptoms, which can be perceived externally by means of senses, which you can perceive, which you can find it out by means of your own senses. So patient can tell you what he is suffering from. The attendants are there who used to observe him. They can tell you what is wrong with the patient. And it is the physician who is there who can find it out what is the wrong with the patient. And with the senses of all those three personalities, you get what is wrong with the person. And to which he labeled by the name of portrait of the disease. So what he says, if you want to become really unprejudiced, don't label the disease by any name. Whatever may be the diagnosis, keep it outside your range of your mind. Don't mix it with the patient symptomatology, and just go and listening what the patient's complaints are there, what the symptoms are there. So if a patient comes to you and he's telling you very specifically that, "Oh, doctor, since last many years I used to get a very difficult headache. It used to start over there on the back side, then it comes to the occiput, then it comes on the top, and then it settles over my right eye. And this is happening since last 10 to 15 years. And don't laugh, doctor. Just I want to discuss one thing with you. This happens every time whenever there is a new moon or full moon. And I have observed many a time. Now don't label this patient is of a migraine. If you label migraine, you immediately catch remedies of migraine in front of your mind. Better what our patients said, complain. How it starts, where it starts, how it extends, where it settles, what are the modalities with which it comes. So these are the things which you have to understand. Then it is possible to reach to the right remedy. Your therapeutic depends upon the characteristics of the symptoms, but not on the diagnosis. If you think of a migraine, immediately the remedies of migraine comes in front of your mind, which makes the confusion in your mind. So you should not be confused. When you are dealing with the patient, you should not get confused. So that confusion should be avoided. And for that purpose, it is necessary to become an unprejudiced. And this is what the Hahnemann wants to explain. He can take note of only the things which are altered in character from the previous healthy state. And then further he adds, that is to say, he notices only the deviations from the former healthy state of now deceased individual, which are felt by the patient himself. The first person who used to tell you the details is the patient. So first source of your portrait is the patient himself. Second source is remarked by those around him. That means the attendants who are there, remarked by those around him. Whoever they will going to observe that patient. They will going to add something. They will tell you what is the nature of the person. They will tell you how he is behaving. They will going to tell you what may be the reason behind his disease. All those things. So attendants are also very important. You can get a proper information about the patient. And third one, and observed by physician. So three basic sources of your portrait are patient, the attendant, and third one is nothing but the physician himself. This Hahnemann have written a way back, 230, 25, 30 years back. But today, if you compare this, there is one more addition you have to do. Many things you can get from the investigation. The fourth point which you can add over there is the lab investigation. Even though they define the name of the disease, but it is one of the important source of your portrait. You can build your portrait on the basis of that. So one more thing you can add over there, that in order to build your portrait, the lab investigation. But with the unprejudiced mind, you can just look towards the what is altered in the character of the state of the person. So that will define you exactly what the patient wants. So just for that example, that Salma, she has rightly explained that this is Cilicia. Yes, Cilicia is there because Cilicia has the similar type of headache, at the same time similar type of modality. So unless and until we get a proper characteristic symptom or characteristic totality, we can never reach to the right remedy. And for that purpose, it is so much necessary to become an unprejudiced. If you make a habit of diagnosing the cases, and according to diagnosis, if you are if you are treating or looking toward the patient, you will become more and more prejudiced. So don't look towards diagnosis for the purpose of prescription. Don't keep it with yourself. Just find it out what is wrong with the patient first. Diagnosis is there only for the purpose of understanding the disease process and prognosis of the disease. And this is what he wants to highlight over there. This part is very thoroughly explained by him in this paragraph. So, how to become a prejudiced is a big thing one has to develop. And you have to make a habit to become unprejudiced. Second thing which I want to tell you, that it is always better to become an unprejudiced, it is always better to use more repertory than the materia medica. With materia medica aspect, you become more prejudiced because what happens, we used to learn remedy and we used to fix that remedy in our mind. And once we fix that remedy in our mind, we used to think in direction of that remedy. So this should not happen. If you try to use your repertory again and again, to become unprejudiced becomes simple. So the task becomes very simple. This is my suggestion to become how to become unprejudiced. And what then he further says in this paragraph is very important. All these perceptible signs, what he says, all these perceptible signs represent the disease in its whole extent. So these are the perceptible signs which either told by the patient, by the attendant, or which are observed by the physician. They that represents the disease in its whole extent. That is, together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the disease. Underline the portrait of the disease. That is short note topics for the exam going student. This is a very important topic from exam point of view. So portrait of disease is formed from the patient's information. The portrait is formed by the attendant. He gives information about the patient. And portrait is also formed with the help of the physician's own observation. And portrait can be formed with some laboratory investigations, the reports of laboratory investigations. But what is there in the portrait? What is the meaning of this portrait word? Anyone knows what is portrait? What do you mean by portrait? Portrait is complete picture, exact picture. Portrait is, in Marathi we call it hubehub chitra. It is the picture which is as it is. Everything is there in that picture is called as a portrait. So portrait is a big thing which is consisting of common as well as characteristics, which contains everything about the patient. Every information which is gathered is collected over there is the portrait. It is everything is there. So with portrait, you can get detailed information about the patient, his individuality. But sometimes it happens, sometimes it can lead to confusion also. Because you have a jungle of symptoms over there. You have many symptoms. There might be some symptoms, there might be some normal things about the patient which are collected over there in the information and which are there in the portrait. So portrait is a big part out of which you have to take out the totality. So out of portrait, you have to form the totality. So next aphorism, he leads towards the totality. First thing which he defines over there, when you deal with the patient, first thing which you have to form is the portrait of the disease. And from the portrait, you have to form the totality. So totality is the next step after forming the portrait. So is it clear in your mind? The portrait is a big part where everything is collected, every information about the patient is collected, which contains normal as well as abnormal things, which contains signs, which contains symptoms, which contains the normal constitutional features of the person, how the person looks, how is the body, everything is collected in the portrait. And the information you can gather from the patient, from the attendant, at the same time from the physician's own observation. So this is what is the meaning of the sixth aphorism, where he wants to define that portrait of the disease is formed by just unprejudiced nature of the physician. So one more quality of the homeopathic physician defined in the sixth aphorism is he should be unprejudiced of the disease. So first we have discussed first quality. What is that quality? Anyone? First quality is he should have knowledge of disease, indication. Number two quality, knowledge of medicinal powers. Number three, the choice of remedy, the medicine indicated. Number four is nothing but the proper dose. Number five is the repetition of the dose. Number six is the obstacles in the process of recovery. Number seven is the preserver of health. And number eight is the he should be an unprejudiced observer. So these are the qualities of the homeopathic physician which are necessary to understand the better human aspects or better patient's aspects. So this is what he wants to explain over there. There is a big footnote to this paragraph, and this footnote is related with allopathy. There is a comparison. In homeopathy, we used to take into consideration the portrait of disease, whereas exactly opposite is done in allopathy. And that's why he compares that in the second footnote. So footnote number second, we'll start with the footnote number second. What he says, I know not, therefore, how it was possible for the physician at the sick bed to allow themselves to suppose that without most carefully attending to the symptoms and being guided by them in the treatment, they ought to seek and could discover only in the hidden and unknown interior what there was to be cured in disease, arrogantly and ludicrously. What is arrogantly? Arrogantly म्हणजे उद्धटपणे, ludicrously म्हणजे हास्यास्पदपणे. Cured in the disease arrogantly and ludicrously, pretending that they could, without paying much attention to the symptoms, discover the alteration that had occurred in the invisible interior and set it to the right with unknown medicines. And that such a procedure, as this could alone be called radical and rational treatment. So now he compares it with allopathy. How an allopath looks towards the patient and how he examines the patient. Have you seen many times? How much time he spends with the patient? He asks the patient, what is the problem? Patient details that I'm having sore throat. Finish. What do? They take the torch, look toward the throat, and starts writing the prescription. Hahnemann says that how they have understood the inner cause, which was not known to anyone. How they have observed that this is the reason, this is the cause, and they said they have known, they understood the cause of the disease. Hahnemann says, how can they find it out? Which type of eye is there which can locate their cause? Because the cause is hidden in the interior in the dynamic form. And what do they look for? And this is what he criticizes over there, that how they can find it out the cause of the disease and immediately prescribe the medicine. And they call themselves, they are the rational practitioners of the healing art, or they do the rational treatment. Hahnemann explains, if you don't examine the patient, if you don't listen to the patient, if you don't understand the patient, and still you are considering that you are rational practitioner, how can it be possible? So this is the criticism against the allopathy, which he mentions over there. That is a comparison between the forming the portrait of disease, whereas in allopathy, they just overlook towards the patient, finds it out one or two prescribing symptoms, and on the basis of which they give the medicines, which are not known to them also, because they are proved on animals. And this part of the allopathy, he tries to criticize over there with, in the question, in the bracket written unknown medicines, unknown, and he has made the exclamatory mark over there. Why he has said unknown? Because they are not known, because they are not proved on healthy human beings. So this is what he has explained over there regarding it. And in next paragraph, what he says is again very important from exam point of view also. Is not then that which is cognizable. Cognizable म्हणजे, what do you mean by cognizable? Which is known to him, recognizable, cognizable. So एखादी गोष्ट माहिती असलेला, cognizable. Is not then that which is cognizable by the senses in the diseases, through the phenomena it displays, the disease itself in the eyes of the physician, since he never can see the spiritual being that produces the disease, the vital force, nor is it necessary that he should see it, but only that he should ascertain its morbid actions, in order that he may thereby enable to cure the disease. What else will the old school search for in the hidden interior of the organism as a prima causa morbi? Underline this, prima causa morbi. Prima causa morbi means primary cause of the disease. Prima causa morbi is nothing but the very superficial cause of the disease. Just write it down, then we'll discuss. As a prima causa morbi, whilst they reject as an object of cure and contemptuously despise. Contemptuously means tiraskarit, looking with contempt. Despise म्हणजे to look after the things in a wrong manner, तुच्छ लेखन एखाद्याला. Despise the sensible and manifest representation of the disease, the symptoms that so plainly address themselves to us. What else do they wish to cure in diseases but these? Hahnemann explains over there, what do they look for inside the human being? If you go to an allopath who are suffering from the if you are suffering from the some disease, and if you go to the allopath, for example, for fever, allopath examines you, he asks just to take a temperature, and he immediately starts writing prescription, or he asks you to go for certain investigation, and they explain that I want to find it out cause of your disease. What do they use to find it out? They used to find it out this superficial cause of the disease. That is, if there is a typhoid, the Salmonella typhi, which causes the typhoid, Salmonella typhi is prima causa morbi. In case of COVID-19, it is the virus, which they used to find it out. In case of tuberculosis, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. But these are very, very, very superficial causes of the disease, because even after your tuberculin test is positive, Montus test is positive, you are not labeled that you are having tuberculosis. Even modern science now accepts that it means that you have tuberculous bacilli inside your body, but it doesn't mean that you have tuberculosis. So it itself is sufficient to understand this concept, and this is what he is explaining. That how allopaths look toward this thing, that they are the rational practitioner of healing art, because they knows the cause of the disease. Hahnemann says, what cause of the disease? if you find it out the things that malaria is caused because of the bite of Anopheles mosquito and transformation of the malarial parasite, either Plasmodium movile, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, any of them, and then that is responsible to produce malaria. But even though if that Anopheles mosquito bites thousands of the people, everyone never suffers from the malaria because that prima causa morbi cannot do anything unless and until the person is deceased prior to it. Unless and until his vital force is disturbed, this bacteria, this parasite can't do anything. Hahnemann says, if this is so, then how? What is the use of finding it out? All those parasites and all those bacteria or all those viruses, there is no use because disease is prior to it. So, cause of the disease, the basic cause of the disease is rather different, and what allopaths or modern science looks towards it is only the prima causa morbi, the superficial cause of the disease. And still, after finding the superficial cause of the disease, you consider there that you are rational practitioner of healing. But generally, what happens? Many a times, when you ask to investigate the patient, and many a times you don't get anything over there, every report found to be normal, and then you label immediately by the name of idiopathic disease. Sometimes you label it by the name of idiopathic. This was the word which they used to use earlier. Later on, it was changed. Instead of idiopathic, they have changed psychosomatic, better terminology rather than idiopathic because when they doesn't find it out, they consider that it is very difficult. It is idiotic. We become idiotic, and that's why idiotic. Second one was the psychosomatic, and now it turns towards the third one, that is the autoimmune. Another better word. But these are the causes which they used to find it out. Only are the prima causa. Unless and until the person is deceased primarily, unless and until the person's vitality, the vital principle is deceased because of some emotional trauma, because of some inimical dynamic influence, the person never catches all those infections. And those bacteria, those viruses, those parasites cannot do anything to the patient. So there are two things which he has explained on in this paragraph. First important thing that allopaths look toward the patient in a contemptuous manner, just never giving importance to the symptom, but only one of the symptom and coming directly to some speculation, diagnosis, and giving the medicines to the patient. This he has criticized. At the same time, he has criticized their concept of looking towards the disease with prima causa morbi, the causes of disease. And that also he criticized over there. So, last sentence which he explains over there, what else do they wish to cure in diseases but this? But actually, this is not the thing which we have to criticize, which we have to cure. We have to cure the dynamic derangement of the vital force, because of which that malarial parasite is able to produce malaria, salmonella typhi is able to produce typhoid. That dynamic derangement and the language of this dynamic derangement is only signs and symptoms or external manifestations of the disease. So, unless and until we give importance to the signs and symptoms, it is not possible to cure any patient. So, today we have finished. We have started with sixth aphorism. We have started with the concept of unprejudiced observation. Then we have turned toward the portrait of disease. At the same time, in the footnote, we have learned one more topic, that is prima causa morbi, which allopaths used to find it out as the cause of the disease. And all things in detail we have learned. Tomorrow we'll enter into another aphorism, and next aphorism gives you one part of this portrait of disease is nothing but the totality of the symptom. Tomorrow we have to learn in detail about the totality of the symptom. It is a big aphorism. Many questions are there from exam point of view in next aphorism also. In this aphorism, portrait of disease is short note, unprejudiced observation is short note, prima causa morbi is a short note. These are the topics from exam point of view. So thank you being there. Thanks a lot to all of you who are present regularly for this session. And
Thank you so much, sir.
today evening also you have uh, one more thing in divine school. You can learn few aspects about the importance of case taking. So don't miss that. There is one question. I will answer this question tomorrow. Tomorrow you ask it again because now there is very less time is remaining, less than 1 minute. Dr. Preeti, you must keep your questions for tomorrow so that we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. So thank you being there, everyone, and we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Thanks a lot.